Hello everyone, welcome to the 6th episode of my Let's Play Kerbal Space Program. Today we are going to be returning the crew that we have brought to the moon back to Kerbin. And the first part of doing that, which we're about to try to do right now, is launching into orbit. So you can see there, I was setting the command ship as my target for this lander, waiting until it passes overhead just right, and then taking off to hopefully get a good rendezvous with it. Now, unfortunately, this recording got a little bit messed up and we don't have sound, but I'm sure that y'all can do your best to imagine that we do. And at the very least, I promise not to make any fake noises. Unfortunately, my fears from last episode about being low on Delta V were well-founded, and as you can see, I'm having to use my RCS to actually get into orbit here. Totally out of liquid fuel. We have, it shows in the bottom left corner, about 140, 130 meters per second of Delta V with RCS left, which should be just enough to get us into a very, very low orbit of the moon here. Looks like our orbit is going to be just around 10 kilometers. About 66 meters per second to actually get into orbit. Totally out of liquid fuel, about 130 meters per second left in RCS, but this should be just enough to get us into orbit and get us ready for the command ship to come rendezvous with us. With just RCS, these burns do take a while, but eventually it is finished and we will switch on over to the command ship to finish up this rendezvous. For this rendezvous, we're going to be using a little trick here to try to make our plane change maneuver less expensive on our Delta V budget. So we set a maneuver node at the descending node and then increase our speed to raise our apoapsis. And then the plan is that we will change our plane at our apoapsis. It's cheaper to change your plane when you're moving slower, and you're moving slower when you're higher up. Eventually I get all the maneuver nodes figured out, and it is time for us to burn to raise that apoapsis. Once that's taken care of, we can plan out our plane change maneuver and then execute it. I really like planning out rendezvous and executing rendezvous in this game. There's something very satisfying about it. There's a standard process that you can follow to pull it off pretty consistently, and there's just something so satisfying about taking these two objects that are traveling at ridiculous speeds extremely far away from each other and relatively easily be able to make them meet back up. So right here, once we have taken care of our plane change, we need to figure out how we're actually going to get an intercept here. And I get pretty close. It's sort of hard to do in just one burn when you are in a highly elliptical orbit. So I'm going to have to end up doing 2 burns here, I think. Before too long, I've got an intercept planned. It will take 2 burns, but we should be able to end up around 1.5 kilometers away from the lander. After warping ahead, we go ahead and execute this first of our 2 rendezvous burns. This one should bring us in pretty close, and then we'll just have to readjust our second burn maneuver node to make sure that we are able to get a close encounter. Next, we need to execute this second burn to fine-tune our final approach, and then all that we'll need to do is wait a little while and match speed with our target. You can see that yellow box on the left side of the screen. That's the target that we're trying to encounter. The lander is just about in visual range, only 12.5 kilometers away. So now we need to start slowing down relative to the lander and also change our trajectory just a little bit to bring us in just a little bit closer. All of those burns finally pay off as we get within about 500 meters of this lander. We just need to gradually take ourselves in. It's right now about 4 meters per second, and before too long, we are about 100 meters away and can begin our final docking procedures. With kind of incredible timing, that health mod comes into play and ends up taking out Bill. I guess he had been on his own for too long without enough space, and also he was in microgravity. So with these two ships close together and traveling at about 5 meters per second different speed, I end up losing control of that ship. Luckily, they don't collide, but we will have to finish off this docking procedure with the lander. Before too long, we're ready to come in for this final approach and go ahead and dock these two ships together. I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do with this lander. I don't want to bring it back with me to Kerbin because that is just a lot of extra weight to be bringing back with you. It reduces significantly the amount of Delta V that you have. But I was considering the possibility of trying to extend this mission to also go land on Minmus, but I figured that we were pretty low on Delta V and that's an unnecessary risk overall. After transferring the crew over to the command module, we go ahead and say farewell to our trusty lander that served us oh so well throughout this mission, and begin to set up a maneuver node to take us back to Kerbin. Overall, I would say that I'm really happy with how this mission has gone. It's been a little while since I've done an Apollo-style mission, and it was really satisfying to actually pull this off, especially with that little hop that we did. Running out of fuel, having to use RCS. Also learned a whole lot about this health system and what sort of things that you have to plan out for. For much longer missions, I'm really not too sure how I'm actually going to be able to pull them off. So it's going to be interesting to think about things and design ships specifically to be able to allow these Kerbals to handle those long-term missions. Our capture is taken care of. We're on the way home, and we've just got a little bit of fuel left to burn to just try to shave off a little bit of this velocity before we hit the atmosphere. But we have a pretty big heat shield. We've actually got landing legs on the pod this time, so I think that this should be a pretty smooth landing. We make it safely through the most dangerous parts of the re-entry process and get ready to pop our parachutes. It looks like we're going to be coming in on a city, so hopefully people won't mind us landing in their backyard or anything too much. No need for you to watch the entire landing sequence. These dang ships just travel so slowly under parachutes. I guess that is the point of parachutes though, so I shouldn't complain too much. We grab a surface sample here before heading on back to the Space Center. Just a little extra 10 science to add on to the buttloads that we got from the moon. Looks like it is 942 science. Oh, baby. That should be able to afford us some very nice upgrades out of the Technology Center. Speaking of, let's see what we decide to purchase here. We know that we want to build bigger ships, so we get those two upgrades. We also get advanced construction so that we can put space stations together. And then I'm a bit indecisive. I want to get actuators because robots are cool, but I also know that I need to get advanced exploration to get the research lab. So we get that, we get the rover parts, and then we get basic aviation. But that's it for now. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode.